Luke 14:26 says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple." Jesus uses the term hate. How can we possibly hate our Father? Today's verse from the Mark of Gospel will give us a clear example. So make sure to stick around until the end of the video. Today we're going to go over Mark 1:20. It's a pretty long verse, but not hard to understand. A lot of words in this verse we have already encountered, we have already analyzed. So we're going to go over this verse pretty quickly, I would say. Let's start reading it. There's the first part, which is very brief, kai euthus ekalezen autus, and then kai aphentes ton pater auton zebedaion, and toploio metaton misoton, apelson opiso autu. So what's the structure of this verse? The first part of the verse is very short. Kai euthus, we know this introduction is very typical of Mark. We saw it many times. It means and immediately. It's the way that Mark keeps his story alive, fast, quick, engaging for the reader. And then you have the verb and the direct object. Very simple sentence. Then another sentence starts with a kai and then you have this, which we're going to see it's a participle that refers to the two brothers, James and John. It's a verb, right, that has a direct object. And here's the direct object, ton patera Zebedaian. Okay, so this is the direct object. And we know this is the genitive. So it's specified of whom this patera is. Then you have this entoploio, which indicates a place. Then you have this metato miseton, which indicates with whom. Okay, so you have these two prepositions that tell you that and, place, meta, with. And then you have the main verb of the sentence, which is apelsen. And then you have another place, so piso autu, another expression that we've seen few times already in Mark. All right, the very first little sentence, kai euthus, and immediately, ekalesen. This is a verb. The verb is kaleo, which means to call. To call. Now, this epsilon in front and this sigma in the ending tell us that this is an aorist tense, okay, of the indicative third person singular. So ekalesen means he, meaning Jesus, called, okay, and he called autus. So you have this ending, omicron upsilon sigma is the masculine plural of the accusative case because it's an object. And we know that this is a personal pronoun. It means them. Okay. So, and immediately he called them. Jesus called James and John. The second sentence starts with a kai and conjunction. Aphentes. Let's spend some time here. We said that this is a participle. Now, what kind of participle? It's an aorist participle. And then you have this ending, nu tau epsilon sigma entes, which is telling us that this is a nominative plural, masculine plural. Okay, so it's referring to James and John, and they're doing something. What are they doing? Well, the verb that it's under this participle, aphentes, is the verb aphiemi. Now, this is a very important verb. Aphiemi means to send away, okay, to send away, to let go, and all this kind of different shades around that semantic field. You have this idea of away because you have this preposition af, which we know comes from apo, and apo means away from, away from. And the P gets softened in a phi, right? In aphiemi. So aphiemi is composed from the preposition apo, away from, and the verb hiemi, which means to send. So literally means to send away and to let go. So to leave, okay? When you're going away and leaving somebody behind you. That's the idea. Why am I saying this is a very important verb? This is the verb that it's used in the Lord's Prayer when we say, forgive our trespasses as we forgive. When you send away, when you let go of the debts that people have with you, you are forgiving them. Okay. So that's why I'm saying afiemi is a very important verb. Afiemi is the verb of the forgiveness, means to forgive in some cases. It's not this case, but we should keep that in mind. It's the same verb that Jesus used in the Lord's Prayer. When you forgive a sin, you're literally letting it go from your soul. You free yourself from that burden, right? And you're free because you forgive the trespasses that somebody else committed against you. Here, there's a very similar image. They immediately leaving, okay, that's the meaning, afentes, leaving. Who? Ton patera. So this is the article, the, and patera means father, okay, father. In Latin, pater, right, means father. And father in English comes directly from this Greek root. So the father means, so they are leaving the father, auton. Auton is the same as autus, right? It's the same personal pronoun, but now in the genitive plural. Okay, the father of them, so their father. So, and leaving their father, Zebediah, you see this Omicron nu that agrees with ton, patera, which is the accusative case, masculine singular. We know that the father of James and John was Zebedee, right? So, and leaving their father, Zebedee, where? En to ployo. So, and we know what that is. It's a preposition that wants the dative case. We saw it many times, and in fact, we get the dative case here is that omega with iota subscript. It's a clear indication of dative. So, in to, definite article, in the ployo. We already seen this word before. It means a boat. Boat. So where? In the boat. Okay. It's the place where they leave their father. And leaving their father Zebedee in the boat, meta ton misoton. Now we already mentioned that this meta is another preposition which means with. Well, meta can have many different meanings according to which case is associated with. In this case, meta is associated with a genitive, right? We see it here. Omega nu is a clear indication of a genitive. Ton, misoton, genitive plural. Okay, is exactly as this auton here, genitive plural. Okay, meta plus genitive usually indicates companionship. Okay, so they left their father Zebedee in the boat with whom? With the misoton. Who are the misoton? Well, this term refers to people that were hired as workers, sometimes full time, sometimes part time. So this is a very important indication from Mark. And pay attention, it's only Mark that gives us this particular detail. If you read Matthew, if you read Luke, you're not going to get any information about this part. The fact that Zebedee, the father of James and John, had actually people working for him. What kind of information can we get from this apparently insignificant detail that Mark puts there? Well, at least two important things. Number one, you see that nor Matthew nor Luke, when they talk about this particular calling of James and John specify that Zebedee and James and John had some kind of workers there, but Mark does. And remember, Mark very likely was the translator of Peter, was the guy that Peter trusted to translate his preaching in either Greek or possibly even Latin. Now, you understand why possibly it's only Mark that talks about this detail. Why? Because he got it from Peter. Peter, James, and John, and Andrew were working together as fishermen. They had the same business. They were in business together. So it's an insider information that only Peter really could have. And this is, if you want, a confirmation of the fact that really Mark got this information from an insider, which could be only Peter. Peter knew about the fact that his companions in business actually had some workers working from them. And that's why he puts this there. So this little detail kind of confirmed the fact that Mark is really getting this information from an eyewitness, Peter himself. Second, we get some information about the wealth status of Zebedee and James and John and his family. If he was able to hire people for his fishing business, it means that this guy was not on the lower level of the society. He probably was middle class and he had some kind of wealth, at least was wealthy enough to pay for some workers. So really, he was like a small business owner, really. And that's important because we probably can get from here that, and this is the tradition, tradition in Zebedee has been always associated with the idea that he was the guy that had some money and was really fundamental in terms of economic support for Jesus' ministry. Of course, Jesus and his disciples didn't have anything. They were going around preaching and they were relying on people giving them food, right? And hosting them in their homes and so on. So they needed, of course, some form of support. Zebedee and his family were the main contributors, financially speaking, to Jesus' ministry. So that's another thing to keep in mind. In the last part of the verse, we find the main verb, which is apelsan. Now, this comes from the verb aperkomai, okay, which is apo, the usual preposition that we already saw here in afentes, which means away from, and the verb erchomai. Okay, erchomai, we saw it already in Mark a few times, is a very common verb that means to go. Okay, so apo plus erchomai becomes aperkomai, which means to go away. To go away. So this apelsan is an aorist tense. Okay, aorist tense in the third person plural. Okay, so it refers to James and John after leaving their father in the boat with the workers. They left. They went away. Opiso autu. Opiso, we saw it many times in Mark already. It means behind or after. Okay, and autu is the same as this autus, the same as this auton. In this case, you have this omicron u, which tells you it's a genitive singular. In this case, means him. Okay, opiso is a preposition that wants the genitive. So, and they went away after him. You can translate, and they followed him, right? But literally means they went away and they followed him. They went away behind him, after him. And you have this duplication of this idea of apo, afentes apelsan. Leaving their father, they went away. Going away from their father, they went away. Mark is stressing this idea of apo, of going away, of leaving everything opiso behind. Okay, they leave everything behind to follow Jesus. Why are they doing that? They're doing that because they learned how to hate their father. This is the meaning of hating your father. It doesn't mean that you have to go to your father and punch him in the face. It means that when Jesus calls you, nothing else matters. Not your father, not your mother, not your own life. Jesus says you have to hate even your own life. When Jesus calls you, nothing else matters. Hating means renouncing, aphiemi, letting go, renouncing everything that pertains to your earthly life. And think about the reaction of their father, Zebedee. Well, Mark doesn't say. He says that simply they just left everything, their father and the workers on the boat, and they just left. But Mark doesn't record the fact that Zebedee tried to stop them. This is very important. At that time, when a rabbi, and Jesus at that point was viewed as a rabbi, a teacher, right, was calling you specifically, that was considered to be a high honor. People were leaving their families. They were willing to leave everything behind to follow a specific rabbi. Being and becoming a disciple of a rabbi was not something that you would go and say, hey, can I follow you? No, usually at that time, a rabbi would just pick you. And if a rabbi would pick you, that would be a great honor. So much so that your family would be honored to lose you if they knew that you had been picked by a certain rabbi. So don't imagine that Zebedee was sad or anything, seeing his sons leaving him all of a sudden. He was probably very happy and he felt very honored. He had other people working for him. He probably didn't need his sons to work for him. He was very proud of their kids. And when he saw them leaving him, probably a smile came to his face. In other words, Zebedee was proud of the fact that his sons learned how to hate him.